So obviously you saw the stuff with some of the companies that are filing for bankruptcy with BBS and Recaro, right?
Yeah.
When I saw that, I thought I don't know. There was a level of me that was surprised and a level that wasn't so surprised, and I think one towards the other.
Okay.
But I mean, do you think that is in because of like aftermarket stuff is kind of just taking a hit right now, or maybe people aren't buying so much aftermarket stuff?
Oh, geez. I don't even know that I think it's an aftermarket thing. I think both those companies, if you know a good history about them, there was things happening behind the curtain. And I also think that, there's an economy thing at standpoint. But, I also think it's important that people understand that, first off, this whole idea of Recaro going out of business, I think is not a good narrative, because I don't believe that they are. Like,
right.
You're talking about a company that's so big. Recaro's huge.
Right.
And they do marine and office chairs, and they do gaming chairs, and they do this child safety division, and they do like all these different things. And so Recaro Automotive Division in Germany filed for insolvency. And a lot of times companies do this from a standpoint of, debts or contracts, or there's like, sometimes it's not just like, oh, this company's doing so bad. I don't think Recaro's going anywhere.
Yeah, well, I thought it was really weird that everywhere I've seen that people are grouping in the BBS and the Recaro thing together in the same articles.
I don't think they're the same circumstance, right?
Right, yeah. It's almost like they were playing off as if it's the same company or something like that, which is weird to me. Also, I think it's
timing. That was timing to me.
Right.
It just happened at the same time.
But, what I was going to say is that, also, I don't think people get that there's plenty of companies go bankrupt and are still around.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's a good sign of measure, but I also think that, if you look at the history of BBS over the past, let's say 20 years or so, I mean, they've had, blips and moments like this before. Mm-hmm. So, what happens to the brand? How does it transition? I'm not really sure, but I don't. Let me go away from those two companies, because I think that there's plenty of articles and different things that have covered about that. And honestly, I don't believe that you're not going to see these two brands around anymore, right? I think that these companies are going to be fine, and they're going to continue on, and it's not going to be the end of their existence. And I don't even know that I think that. I think there's a lot of noise being made over these things, and I don't think it's really going to translate to, kind of any real change in course for what's going on. So I wouldn't get too worried if you're a car enthusiast that loves Recaro and loves BBS wheels. I think that you're going to be just fine going forward. I think you'll have your ability to use these products. Now, Fanatec too was an interesting one. Max just threw that up. I just saw that.
Well, they have a lot of competition now.
Sure, and I think that they've also had their fair share of product issues. I say that as having owned a lot of Fanatec. I own my whole rig primarily is Fanatec components.
Oh wow!
So like I use them, and I think Max has a couple Fanatec components too.
Yeah, he likes Fanatec.
Yeah, and with that stuff, I think we've both come up with little things we maybe don't like about this or that, and there's a lot of people selling little replacement components and things like that to try to improve maybe the feel or some of the use of those components. So I think they've had a few issues with some of their stuff. I think but again, when we talk about bankruptcy, I don't know that that's the end of Fanatec either. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of restructuring goes, and I think that. One of the things that's really plaguing a lot of these companies has to do with just look, if you have an economy that's going down or is struggling or having a downturn or whatever you want to call it, I don't want to call it recession because I don't believe it is. But when you have these things, you're going to have people that are going to spend less on expenditure, like luxury items. You're going to have people that will spend less on some of the more consumer products that aren't necessary, aren't staples.
Right.
And I think that that's happening. And I also think that if you're a company that's tried to do a lot of expansion, or if you've tried to do a lot of different things, or if you have contracts where you've built money into your business that was through loans, which a lot of companies do. Thankfully, we're not one of them has to deal with that. But I think if you do that, you're susceptible to rising interest rates and what those interest payments could potentially mean for your business. And when you have, let's say, kind of a slowdown period, which happens when aftermarket companies specifically get into maybe some of the times where people are going to watch their spending a little bit more, then I think that a lot of those interest payments and different things could potentially become problematic for a company on the balance statement. So I guess I just brought out a little bit of my presidential thoughts or whatever. But with that said, I think that and I've been through recessionary periods before, right? I was here when we had the 2007, 2008, bomb shelf of the housing collapse and all those different things, and watching the market fall apart. I was here with, when we've had, some economic turns, which happened, I think like maybe 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that area. It just wasn't really great. It wasn't nearly what 7 and 8 were, but and I think that there's a big nature of doing a good job to run a company, but also to understand how to weather a storm or a slowdown period. And, the companies that are cash flow capable and are strong and have done the right thing and have good reputations, that's where those times shine. They're able to move through it a little bit faster. But look, here's the thing. I think that, for some of these companies in the aftermarket segments, you're looking at just a change in the tides, right? I when it comes down to aftermarket seats, would I venture to believe that the sales of aftermarket seats, if you look at a graph over the past 20 years, do I think they're declining?
I bet you they are. Mm-hmm.
I would, right? I would also venture to say that is probably happening in aftermarket passenger car wheels from in the past 20 years. I would say that from a unit count, that's happening as well.
Yeah.
Because, look, you look at some of these cars nowadays, and I think you're the perfect one to bring this point up to, but you look at some of these cars nowadays, and you're talking about cars that are coming with better seats.
Yep.
Recaro options.
Yep.
Maybe a Sparco option. Like, they're coming with some really amazing or really good quality seats.
Yeah.
That didn't happen that was few and far between in 2000 and the late 90s, and you know what I mean?
You know what's funny for me, like I actually was looking into possibly getting new seats for my Speed 3.
Okay.
When I had that.
Yep.
And I've never got aftermarket seats before in my life. I've never particularly considered it, but the main reason why I needed it is because I have a little bit of a bad lower back.
Okay.
And so like I really wanted something that had lumbar support. I kind of missed the heated seats in this wintertime. So I wasn't looking for a racing seat for the Speed 3.
You were looking for an upgraded seat.
I was looking for an upgrade seat. And then I looked and saw that there's not so many great options out there for that. So
well, there are, but they're expensive.
Right, exactly. And but even in that, I don't think I saw tons that were really what I was looking for.
Yep.
And if they did, they were going to be expensive. So like in that sense, I was kind of just like, screw it. I don't think it's worth it for me right now. I can just deal with it. I bought myself a little pillow thing for lumbar down over there, and that's what I worked with.
Look, when it comes down to, let's say, aftermarket seats, for an example, right? I don't believe you're the target guy nowadays that's going to go for that seat.
Yeah.
I think, back when you think about what cars were like 20 years ago, okay, the seats were not nearly as good.
Yeah.
They just weren't good. And so was part of accessorizing your car to have a cool interior, adding an aftermarket seat? Yeah. Was part of putting that seat in because the seat was inherently just that much better?
Yes.
Yes. Now, if you're racing on a track, let's say you go once a month or whatever it is on a thing today, and you use your car in a street component, I think unless you have, some of these really highly developed cars like some of the BMW M cars or whatever it is, maybe even like, Evos and
Type
STIs,
R.
Type R, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good example, where they have these really great
super bolstered
racing centric seats, right? I think that you will spend the money if you don't have those, and you will upgrade your seat because it's part of, if you're racing, if you want to use harnesses, if you want to have something that holds you firmer in place because you're doing an aggressive amount of driving, you know what I mean? Then I think that's completely whatever. And you don't do that.
No.
So I wouldn't expect you to have a seat.
If I wanted to track the Miata, or I did that once a month or whatever it was, I would definitely consider get seats then.
Right.
But just not what I do right now.
No, for sure. And I think that's a big thing. And like, but you look at, again, let's go into the same thing. And I think this happens with aftermarket wheels. Yeah. Years ago, you had cars that predominantly came with steel wheels and hubcaps. Right. So like, and I know that people are looking at me like, oh, that was a million years ago. But, look, it was, if you went back 20 years ago, if you went back 15 years ago, when you bought those cars had predominantly steel wheels with hubcaps. Mm-hmm. So would you buy a set of 15-inch replacement alloy wheels that looked better, didn't cost a fortune? Would you buy a set of, upgrade to 17s and do some stuff because it made the car look cool? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right? That's why. But now you get fast forward. Most cars today don't come with hubcaps and steel wheels. They come with, some sort of alloy wheel, whether it's the likable one or not, or whatever it may be. And I think that for a lot of people, they're okay with that. So now who are upgrading their wheels? The enthusiast. Yep. The one that wants a specific look, wants to modify their car, wants a certain performance out of the wheel. And then, obviously you'll have the people that trash their wheel and maybe it's more cost effective, or it's just hey, as long as I have to replace two wheels.
Or they need a second set for winter or something like that.
Second set for winter, or they're looking to have just a better look for the summer. Yep. Right? Those things still exist, but they're not the, hey, like, I have, my car came with steel wheels and I want to have a real wheel on the car. Yep. Not a stamped steel wheel. Mm-hmm. So I would say if you look at all these trends for a lot of aftermarket parts, as OEs have improved their offering and increased kind of the quality of some of these things that we upgraded, I think you're going to see a decline on some of these measures. But like, that's always been the thing. Like, I think about navigation systems. How many cars came with navigation systems?
So many. And that was the big selling point.
Right. And now, and you would pay like $5,000, $4,500 extra.
There'd be trims that the only difference is this one comes with nav.
Right, nav and like black roof, right?
Yeah.
And but what I'm saying is, you would pay another $4,500 for that thing. Yeah. And now, how many cars even bother putting that stuff into their cars?
No one.
A few, but
a nav system?
Yeah, I saw. I just saw one before. I think it was like a Lexus that had and I was like, wow, that's weird.
Oh, but like their version of a navigation system.
Yeah, exactly.
But those are trash compared to the Apple CarPlay and that kind of stuff that you can do.
I think
for
the most part, because I think that they're not nearly as upgradable as, like your phone. They just update.
And we know they get dated so quick. Yeah. So. Man.
But yeah, I think nowadays, like, it would be like, back in the day.
What about speakers and stuff like that?
Oh my God. Back in the day, like, car stereo stuff would be the stuff that you went to first. Yeah. Your first mods, I don't care what you said, were a head unit.
Yeah, throw a kicker in there, right?
But even if you didn't go the sub route, your first, like, I just bought a car back then. What am I going to change? It's definitely the head unit. Yeah. First thing you did was went to a stereo shop. You bought a head unit and had it installed, or you installed it. Yeah. Right? The radios now on a lot of these cars are great. Right? And so people say, well, you can't add a sub. Well, let's say your car doesn't have a factory sub, which most of them do. And you want to add some sub, or you want to add some other, things. What do? They have these modules that kind of coincide or work, or Bluetooth capable. And you can add these signal outputs to be able to put, a subwoofer in, or whatever it may be. But then you also have these sound systems that are coming that are really well equipped and packed. So like,
I've noticed
make these decisions.
I've noticed that it seems like there's almost like a fight over trying to get your speakers into OE manufacturers. Like you see such a wide range of different audio companies now in cars compared to what it used to be. I feel like it used to be very much Sony, Sony pioneered
Bose.
Bose. There you go. That's it. And now you start seeing B&O, Fender, Beats. You start
maybe, but you all right, because maybe some of those companies are a little newer. But Fender had an option on some older cars. You also used to have JBL back in the day.
JBL still
really
up there, which is I think they're Bose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they probably are.
Yeah. Now they probably are. Yeah.
So yeah, like I mean, I think that those aftermarket options, premium sound packages, always kind of existed. But I also think that, the components are much better nowadays that come from the factory, the same way as technology is.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to find some super crazy audiophiles that are super into sounds and hertz and components and crispness, and they'll spend the money to buy the higher end audio things, and they will retrofit their vehicles. But that's no different than a performance enthusiast today.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the enthusiast no matter which side you're coming from.
Speaking of the audio stuff, actually, for my Miata, I wanted to keep everything just kind of bone stock and just kind of preserved or whatever.
Okay.
I took a drive this past weekend. What I use for Bluetooth audio right now is one of those radio wave signal devices that go into the 12 volt.
You're talking about the thing you plug in and it goes, Bluetooth connected.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
It literally
Rich.
says that. And well, how else am I supposed to get my music?
I don't know. They have those modules you can clip into the back of the harness that like now translate that stuff to come through your factory systems.
Well, I'll look into that. We'll talk about that after the podcast.
But it's not the Bluetooth connected.
It does do that, but I'll tell you, those things are not half bad. But the one thing about it that pisses me off is I get this like weird whine of like a radio.
It's feedback noise.
Right. So I get the feedback noise constantly.
So when you accelerate,
yes, and it's so annoying.
So it's because you're modulating something through your radio, but really
that might be the exact one I have.
So back in the day, if we had feedback coming through audio systems, we would just essentially come up with better grounding points.
Right.
And that usually would kill the noise. You have to suppress the noise by basically taking out some of the resistance that's floating.
My point to this was that I think I said I'm just going to swallow the pill and eventually just get a CarPlay unit in there because it'll be nicer anyways.
And honestly they're cheap enough. And the truth is, if you find a unit that retrofits in without you having to cut or change anything,
that's the only way I would do it.
Then you can always change. You can always put your stock one back in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the only way I would do it. But now I said, what the hell am I trying to keep it stock for? Who gives a crap? I want it to be better for me.
So I had an Alpine deck in my 350Z forever.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple years ago, I decided, well, no, I have to have CarPlay, I have to have Bluetooth, I have to have, hands-free, I have to have it all.
Yep.
Right. So I changed to a new Pioneer unit that allows me to do that. It was a little weird for me, like, because I took out a lot of stuff, but like when you think about it, like, no CD, no way to play, like it's got to be connected to your phone, or else you don't have any of those controls, right? So that part was interesting, but yeah, I did the same thing.
Yeah. But no, it'll work out better. I think I'm going to make the decision pretty soon. So
yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting time, for the next few years, watching certain things shake out. I think the economy brings with it its own set of challenges, but I also think that the nature of the enthusiast is evolving, right? And I think you're going to see some products hit the market that are going to, take care of all the problems that maybe still exist within certain vehicles. And then I think you're going to see other products that are going to become more and more niche because the performance enthusiast is going to become either more focused or more, kind of selective about what they put on their car. So
here's a question for you. I actually thought about this recently or whatever. Okay. I've been thinking now that cars basically come with much larger wheels than they ever have before.
Yeah.
And then say even trucks or whatever. Trucks will come with minimum 18-inch wheel.
Yeah.
And it seems like 19s, 20s are more kind of...
Not 19s and trucks, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? But not trucks. I'm sorry. Like bigger SUVs.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. They're 19s and 20s.
21s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now even cars like a RS6 or whatever, they come with 21s or something like that. Yep. Like... With one, prices have just increased just because of inflation in general.
Okay.
And then prices for aftermarket wheels and stuff are going to have to follow suit because they need to be made in bigger sizes. Do you think all that together is going to deter people from looking at options like that?
What's interesting to me is I think that when you speak about us, I think we're in just a different segment altogether.
I'm just saying across the board, though.
I'm with you. That's why I want to make sure I answer that, both ways. But But I really think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that if you look at those people that are doing, kind of the swap outs on 21s or whatever it is, most of the time they're spending big dollars. They want fancy, flashy, type wheels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the other people that maybe are a little bit more performance oriented
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, they're downsizing, not upsizing,
Right.
not staying the same, right? And we've seen that all across the board. Like we tend to get the customer that's looking to downsize because one, they're looking for a different ride quality,
Yep.
but two, they're looking for more of a performance oriented ride quality, where I think some of the larger wheels, you could argue that there's a performance element, but at the end of the day, they tend to be a little bit heavier. They tend to be, kind of have lesser of a cushion of tire.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you drive your car every day and you don't live in the most perfect, pristine area of smooth paved roads, you desire to have a softer ride quality, and have something that's a little bit more, a little bit less penetrable to road hazard.
I mean, I would also imagine something like a 265 35 21 tire would cost you a freaking arm and a leg, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think when you get into those sizes, you're just going to deal with the fact that you have a lot of OE replacements, and whenever you're dealing with an OE quote unquote replacement, I think you potentially are in that area of it being really unique sizing for a particular vehicle, and that's when they're going to charge a
ton.
Yeah,
That's where some tires can get close to like $800 a tire, something like that more. Like I would change wheels just for that.
Well, and the truth is, I'll give you a good example. My dad has a BMW, one of the 440i's, and the first thing we did was we took, because he has the M competition package on there. No, that's not true. He has the M package. But basically, bottom line is we took those 19-inch wheels off the car and we put a set of our 18-inch wheels on the car. He got more tire. He says the car drives way better. It's smoother. It's easier to drive. The wheels are lighter than what came on the car. And, and he doesn't have to worry if he messes one of them up. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of advantages in this area to having me as a son, but but I mean, like, as far as, getting an affordable replacement, even if he didn't get them through me, he'd be able to go to, a Discount Tire or one of the online retailers, an SD Wheel, Tire Rack, whatever it may be, and he'd be able to buy that replacement, put it on his car for a couple $100.
Yeah.
Versus, you go to try to change those M wheels and they're expensive.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's some benefits there. I think there's a lot of benefits there from somebody that's not really super concerned with, the lightest wheel or, making sure it looks this way or that way. But we have so many enthusiasts that are looking for such a specific product, and that's where we'll continuously fall in.
Do you think that, like, we spoke about seats and wheels and navigation systems and stuff like that or whatever, like with cars coming now with more and more stuff and creature comforts or whatever it may be, all that kind of stuff, what do you think is going to be like the next big thing in terms of maybe even past enthusiast level of just maybe more mainstream of what people end up doing for their cars?
Doing in a performance aspect, or what do I think the next integration of a lot of these OEs is going to be as far as what kind of things will be in cars?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of like things that people want to quote unquote modify, maybe it goes down the road where that becomes a standard thing featured by manufacturers.
I don't know if I have a really great answer for this as far as like performance parts and stuff, but the thing I think that you'll see more and more in cars is going to be AI. Right? I
hate that answer.
Well, but here's what I mean. I think that there's a lot of ways that puts in. I think that just the nature of these cars, I'm not saying I'm supporting of it. I'm just telling you what I think it is.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have a lot of AI that's going to be in there, and I think people are thinking I'm talking about in the sense of like actually controlling the vehicle. But I actually think it's not going to be as much of that. I mean, that will happen, but like I think the AI is going to be in there in a sense of like, think about all the verbal commands that you could do and things you could do, like being able to.
They already said a car's coming with ChatGPT. What was that? There was.
I don't know.
Oh, they just put up that a car's going to come standard with ChatGPT, which is mind blowing to me.
But I think that, like, you think about like some of the Google assistants and some of the things. I always thought, and I really genuinely feel this way, that one of the most underappreciated and underused resources that will end up in almost all technology is audio,
Yeah.
right? I think the ability, and I use it to an extent now, like you can use Siri a little bit to do some of this stuff, but like, you know, when you get in your car and you start driving, the ability to be able to say, hey, like, let's say we name Chad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we name your car Chad, right? So you'd be like, hey, Chad, do me a favor. Read me all my new inbox messages starting with, 8 p.m. last night, right?
Yeah.
And like as you drive to work, you're going to be able to like legitimately, and I'm sure that there's some technology that already exists right now. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm describing the future. I'm just telling you what I think will become more prevalent into these vehicles. I think there's going to be that thing of like now, I think it's going to be easier because I use Siri to do like send messages and stuff while I'm driving.
Yep.
But like what I'm saying is I think you're going to find that the integration of like, hey Siri, can you do me a favor? Can you set my alarm at my house? And I know that there's technology that exists. I don't want people to think that I don't know that, but I think that,
living under a rock.
Yeah, like I think that there's going to be just more integration easily amongst vehicles where it's going to end up being one of those things where like right now Siri's listening to me. I can see it, right? But I think it's going to be more integration of that type of thing. Will it get to a point where you'll be driving and instead of using some of the controls, you'll be able to say, hey Siri, turn on, low beams, or hey Siri, change the radio station. Like I think they have some of that stuff now, but how prevalent it's going to be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like I think there's a level of that will increase your experience. We talk about Google, by having Apple CarPlay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are you going to say when you need to have something that's like, the equivalent of Apple CarPlay, but in that AI sense, right? Where you're like, it can help control the vehicle, like, so that you don't have to maneuver your hands away from the steering wheel or, whatever it may be. Turn on windshield wipers. Go to intermittent,
so
slower, faster, right?
We've seen so many times now that so many companies have tried to get away from additional buttons and stuff like that in a car, and they got nothing but terrible feedback.
Well, because you instinctually want to do things. I think the hardest part I have renting so many vehicles is that, and I know we're drifting into topics, but the hardest part for me renting so many vehicles is sometimes I get into them and you realize how counterintuitive they've become.
Right.
You're like, well, wait a minute, how do I do this? Because they got rid of the buttons, but they have these dials and these things, and you got to push this and go this way, and then you got to do this. And you're like, well, wait a minute, how do I turn on the effing lights?
I just thought of something so funny, Scott.
Yeah.
I just thought of something so funny. If you were all doing all voice commands or something like that, and your car responded to it or whatever, I could just picture kids or something like that when their friend gets a car, they roll up next to him at a stoplight, and they just yell, hey car, turn off. And they just, what if they start doing stuff like that? They go into reverse.
No, well, I don't think it's gonna be like I don't know that's gonna happen, but like it could definitely be like, hey Chad, beat the horn.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I guess I think that there's so many ways that this will go and different things, but I guess
self-destruct.
Yeah. I think that there's a reasonable level of integration of technology that is going to be good. I struggle when it starts to pass through. I think the idea that people are uncomfortable with, and I think the idea that I'm the most uncomfortable with, is the loss of having that manual input, having that lack of control, right?
Yeah.
At some point, if you take away all control and all maneuverability, I think that, it's not in human nature. It wasn't designed to be that way. And for people that are kind of going to question against that, my thing would be like, hey, listen, get on a plane and tell me if you feel comfortable with the fact that there's not going to be a pilot on board. Like, are most aviation accidents caused by human error? Yep. Are you comfortable taking that risk of getting in there and there's no one else that has the same skin in the game you do in the front seat holding the wheel? Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Well, I guess I just think there's stuff like that.
Me and Max have spoke about this before, and I remember we had a conversation where we were saying that I was saying that if cars were all autonomous driving and they can guarantee that will reduce or get rid of traffic buildup, like I said, if that's the case, count me in. I'll do it. I don't care. I'll never drive a car again if it means I don't have to sit in traffic, and if it means I can only drive my car for fun. And like, if they mandated that and said, "Hey, listen, we could do that, and you guys, there won't be any traffic on the roads because it'll all be smooth sailing."
But if they mandate that,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to drive your car for
But
fun.
well, no, in the sense that you could drive a car in a recreational sense.
But how do you make the determination between the two? The problem,
Location.
see, to me,
Public roads.
The problem is when you have automation get crossed with manual input.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have that because I think that's the limitation, right? Because what ends up happening is if you end up having a car where you're the one driving, the reason traffic is caused in most senses is because something that happens earlier in that commute causes things the backup just keeps continuing. Right. So like you get on with your Miata and you're rolling through the gears, and then you slam on the brake and it causes AI cars to block up. All of a sudden you just created traffic.
Yeah.
Right. So the only way that trafficless systems could ever exist would almost be like, what do they call those rides where like almost like a ski lift?
Yeah.
Where cars are always going in the same rhythm, right? And you just have to pluck into the right. And if you did that, that's how it would work.
I would be okay with that if they could just get rid of traffic.
Not me.
If they can get rid of traffic,
I'll take the traffic.
I cannot.
Because Rich, you'd be giving up your ability to. You would basically say to me at that point, cars are not important enough for me to be able to drive them. I just need to be able to get from A to B.
It would be contingent on that I can still drive a car for recreational
But
sense.
you can't because you can't mesh the two together.
But if you took it in the sense where you can't drive, like that means that a new thing would open up where people would have to open up areas with more track, stuff like that, where you can drive recreationally. And I think that would make more sense.
I get what you're saying. It's just, to me, you're a cake eater.
Hey, all I know is if you could tell me I can get off Long Island and get somewhere else in 20 minutes as opposed to 2 hours, for the whole sake of Long Island, New York, I think that would be worth it.
But isn't there something to maybe having some sort of bullet train?
Yeah, public transportation has been probably the better answer, but now we're getting really far off.
Well, I know, but you brought us there.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. But public transportation, they should have been already revamping that a long time ago. But
yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't even know how to ask people to leave comments at this point because I don't even know what you would leave a comment about.
Anything.
Listen, leave a comment about a whole bunch of crap that we talked about today.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. I think it's interesting.
I think for people, whatever, I believe this is my last podcast.
That's right.
I think this is my last podcast.
That's right.
So
Rich is moving on.
Yeah. So whenever this goes out, maybe next week or a week after, something like that. I think this is the last time you guys will see me on this podcast.
Right.
And I must say, I think I've done like 50 podcasts with you, man.
That's crazy.
Like, it's been
a lot.
It's been a lot. Yeah. So
man, yeah, you're gonna be missed around here. It's been fun having you here for a few years, and it's gonna be a different vibe for sure, and. Yeah, I think there's some people out there that will miss seeing you around. So
yeah, and I really don't know. I know there's maybe a couple hundred people or something like that consistently watch the podcast, and thank you.
Yeah.
Really, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, Rich is going on to other ventures.
Yeah,
and hopefully it will be a good beneficial piece.
Mm-hmm.
For you, so it'll be exciting to see how things pan out for you and how it lands out.
Yeah, but I thought I would say something before maybe the following weeks after, and I just am MIA.
Well, yeah, we would say, but yeah, man, it's gonna be a different note without you.
Yeah.
So,
and Koenig will hold a special place in my heart.
I appreciate that.
So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's always one of those things. Like whenever you move on, it's a bittersweet moment, right?
It sure is.
So,
perfect word.
I wish you super well.
Thank you, man.
And I know that you'll go on to do some really good things. So
thank you.
That's it. If you're sad to see Rich go, you can go ahead and leave a comment and let him know you're sorry to see him go.
There you go.
Wish him all your goodbyes down below. Aside from that, we'll catch you next week.
And I will not catch you next week.
Whoa, good one.
Lunchtime. Yeah, that was funny. I was trying to seriousness. Oh boy.